Hey, welcome back to The Recap, the video podcast ministry of First Baptist Kettering. We discuss topics such as our vision, our values, and our sermons from week to week. The Recap exists to help us be transformed by Jesus. So with that, let's get started. Hey, back around the table with Pastor Chad. This is so fun. Listen, I wish you could see what happens in here before we actually turn the cameras on and start recording. It's hilarious. We talk about bands. We maybe pick on each other a little bit. That happens sometimes. And the crew that's in here helping us, Harris and Joe, they get involved in it as well. And they just laugh and they roll their eyes. And one day we're going to release the outtakes from this. But that's not happening today. Today we're going to talk about Easter Sunday and where we're going, because you teased a new sermon series this past Sunday about what's coming after we're taking a break in Genesis, right? But let's talk about Easter. Easter Sunday, one of the big Sundays in a church's life, right?
Yes.
So we see what? Christmas, Easter, and usually there's like one or two others. Promotion Sunday's big. And then what else?
You know, just the fall is usually our strongest time of the year.
Right.
And so we see pretty good attendance from Labor Day, after Labor Day through, early, mid-August. October. And then again at Christmas.
Yeah.
And then again around Easter in the spring. We had great attendance week before Easter.
Yep.
And I think that's a lot of different reasons for that. But people, I think, are ready, especially at spring, to get out and get back. And certainly at Easter being what it is, and thankfully, it's still one of those days that there's not a lot of sporting events, a lot of people go places. So it's just a time for really a lot of people in the church to come and be part of celebrating the resurrection.
Yeah, I remember growing up, it was the new outfit day, right?
It's new outfit day.
Easter shopping, that's a new shoes, new coat, new, everything.
Yeah.
And you show up and
here in Ohio, you need like a new winter coat,
every
because
Easter.
You might get a new snowstorm that happens the day after. You just never know.
And I looked outside the window yesterday and thought, okay, that's a sense of humor right there.
It was false spring.
Bright and sunny on Sunday, and then snowing and raining and whatever yesterday. But man, Easter Sunday was amazing. At both campuses, we saw a lot of folks come join us for worship. Family members from different churches attending with worship and worship together. We had several baptisms that took place.
The baptisms.
That was so good and
so encouraging.
Multiple generations backstage prepping for that, praying over the folks going public with their faith. Just a great day. When you think of Easter and the story we retell every year, the truth of the heart of the gospel, the empty tomb. In this sermon from John 20 that you preached on Sunday showed us a picture of the response to the empty tomb that we can have, right? And then you wrapped it up with this seeing and believing. How blessed are those who don't see and yet they believe.
Yeah.
How many? What do you think? Not to play on numbers, but when you think about the hundreds of thousands of people that will attend church with their family for whatever reason, they sit in that room not knowing it, but maybe they're a skeptic in the back of their mind. They hear this story year after year, right? The birth of Jesus at Christmas, the resurrection of Jesus at Easter. It's a 4-month window. We're squeezing a lot of stuff in between those two. Mm-hmm. But they come in that room and they hear that the tomb is empty. We're seeing people going public with their faith. And there's still this, I need to see it, to believe it. That still happens today, right?
Absolutely, still happens today. I mean, it's just the world that we live in that people have a hard time embracing something that they can't feel or touch. We're such a senses or culture where I've got to touch it, see it, feel it, experience it, or it's not real. And that in so many ways is different than what the gospel says, which is to be a person of faith. Like I said in the message, though, it's not a blind faith. It's not a faith that you just pull out of thin air. It's based on eyewitness accounts.
And a thinking faith.
Right.
Yeah.
And evidence.
Right.
That demonstrate the reality and truth of the empty grave. It's just not a just pull up, make a story out of the air kind of deal.
Right.
But a lot of people still feel like I can't, because I can't wrap my mind around that, or I can't prove that scientifically,
Right.
or whatever. I can't believe it. And but we know reality says. I mean, the scripture also says is that that the Spirit of God reveals these truths to us. So there has to be something supernatural happen in your life anyway, in order to be to come to understanding of faith.
Right. So we move from doubt and skepticism, or maybe just this recurring theme of the tomb is empty. Okay, I get it. That's the power of the Christian story at Easter, right? We celebrate an empty tomb. So we go from not being able to wrap our arms around it, right? And we're moving from Easter with this powerful story of what God has done. His Son has come, has lived a sinless life, died a sinner's death in our place, and now he's laid in a tomb, and on the third day he rose again, conquering sin and death. He folds his grave clothes, never to put them on again. It blows their minds. And we stand in a room and we sing songs to a God we can't see, who emptied a tomb on his own, of his own power. And we have freedom and forgiveness from sin and hope, right? There's a ton of hope. And we saw that this buzz, excitement around, we are celebrating the King of Kings, this powerful story. But now we're moving into this new sermon series, and we just finished talking with Pastor David a little while ago about this series in Ecclesiastes, and even though we know that a lot of us, even us, we don't really grasp something in totality until we can get our arms around it, touch it, feel it, know it's there. What does Ecclesiastes help us see?
Man, I'm so fired up about this. I can't even stand it, man. I'm ready to preach this message already. Really ready to dig into this book. It's one of these books that you probably don't read that much of.
Right.
It's not one of these that there's a lot of devotional books that have sections out of Ecclesiastes.
Right.
Probably most people are familiar with Ecclesiastes from the song by the Birds, right? About the seasons. There's a season for everything. And but what an incredible resource for understanding the purpose and meaning of life. Because here you have Solomon, who is writing, who's the wisest man who's ever lived, who has all the money that he ever could need. He has all of the earthly pleasures. He has all of the food and drink. He has all of the women that he desires. He has all of these things that he thinks, if these are the things that provide great fulfillment in life, it's accomplishment, this success. He's the king of Israel. I mean, he has everything that, from an earthly perspective, any one of us could ever want and more.
Yeah.
And he comes to this place and he's like, yeah, that's not working for me, right? That's not providing very much fulfillment for me. All of the wisdom isn't providing much satisfaction for me. And so it's this book that he's written over the course of his life there at the end, that he's helping the younger man, the younger person, to say, oh, you know what? If you want to find fulfillment in life, you don't find it in these things. Let me help you. And so we're going to navigate through this together over the course of the next few months. And my prayer for me and for our congregation is that, man, we will just sink our lives into the truth of who Christ is. Because really, to me, this book points us to the only true joy and fulfillment and satisfaction and purpose in life comes when we plant our lives in the wisdom of Christ.
Yeah, and there's not one of us that has not reached the point in some stage in our life going, man, I thought that was going to bring me fulfillment.
I remember thinking when I finished my DEdmin from Midwestern back in 2008 or 9 or whatever, that if I just get that title of doctor, then I will just be successful.
Yeah.
Right? And I will have and then
you showed you how much you don't know.
Yeah, then you do, and then you're like, oh, that's not it. Yeah. And then, and I love my wife and family to death, but I remember thinking before I got married, when I just get married and I have my own family, I have some kids, then contentment, right? And you know what? I love them, and they provide such great joy in my life, but that's not where contentment comes from either. And then you think, if I could just get that first job and start making some decent money, and then if I could just not have any bills, then I'll have contentment. And guess what? It's just as we grow older, we exchange that goal or that whatever we think it is that's going to provide that fulfillment with something else. And I think one of the things we'll see in Ecclesiastes is sometimes that thing we fill it with is a good thing. Like it's like a spouse or kids or that's a gift from God.
Right.
But if we begin to look for our satisfaction and fulfillment in the gift rather than the giver, we'll miss it. But those things could also be negative things. Like people will look for a purpose and meaning and satisfaction in extramarital relationships. People look for those things in alcohol or drugs. People look for those things in the accumulation of wealth and stuff. And so we can look for it in good places. We can look for it in bad places. But both of those places, if it's not rooted in the wisdom of Christ, just end up us chasing our tail.
So as we look between the two, right, we're going from Easter, where we are saying here is where you can anchor your life in the truth of who Jesus is. And we're going to take you back to the Old Testament and show you the wisdom from someone who's still pointing us to that empty tomb.
Yeah.
Where we're gonna see Ecclesiastes in view of the cross and the empty tomb. I'm so excited about that. Listen, I don't care where you're at, where you're at in your pursuit. If you feel like the things that you're trying to grab your hands around to make you happy, they're fleeting, I want to ask you and plead with you, place your hope, your faith, anchor your life in Christ. That is the one thing that is going to bring that satisfaction and joy and contentment like you just talked about. Whether you join us in person or online, we want to invite you to join us for worship this coming week. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Recap. Let's continue to be the church. If you like this content, look down below and click on that like and subscribe button down there at the bottom of the screen. We'd love to be able to keep up with you and you keep up with us. Have a great rest of the day.